friends. This is another episode of the program Empire of Lies, in which we discuss manipulation and disinformation in the Russian media. When it smells of war, what Russian television is really offering, it smells of war in the air, Vladimir Solovyov says calmly. This is the beginning of more than just a TV show. It's a prologue to a new phase of Russian propaganda, where war is no longer hidden behind euphemisms like special operation. It now sounds normal, like a forecast, like a natural continuation of political discourse. The broadcast is structured around several simple theses. 1. Ukraine is merely a playground, a secondary front. 2. Any Western weapon is a step toward a global catastrophe. 3. Europe and the United States are fighting with proxies. 4. Russia is a victim forced to respond. Taken together, they add up to a worldview in which the world cannot exist without war, and responsibility for any new escalation is preemptively placed on the West. 1. The meaning of threats. It smells of war because you gave it weapons. Solovyev constructs his monologue like a mathematical proof. If Ukraine receives long-range missiles, it will strike Russian targets. Russia will respond. Europe will be covered in a radioactive cloud. This chain of events is not an analysis, but blackmail, packaged in a rational tone. In it, the very possibility of Ukrainian defense is transformed into a sin, and Russia into an automatic system of retaliation. For viewers within the country, this is a comforting picture. We are not attacking, we are reacting. For the outside world, it is a warning. Any move you make could result in a nuclear wind blowing over Poland. But it is precisely in this logic that the key confession lies. Russia isn't talking about victory, it's talking about mutual destruction. When a country can offer the world neither a development model, nor alliances, nor ideas, all that's left is to promise catastrophe as a last resort to be heard. 2. Ukraine as expendable. The second line of the broadcast is almost an accounting one. Solovyov recounts Ukraine's losses: hundreds of thousands killed, millions wounded, cannon fodder snatched from the streets. This is a familiar technique, to depersonalize the enemy, to turn society into statistics. The main message, Ukraine is a country without people, without a future, without meaning. Thus, Russian propaganda justifies the continuation of the war. After all, there's no one left to save. But for the European reader, something else is important. Behind this body count lies envy of the stability of the Ukrainian state. Almost 3 years of full-scale war, millions of refugees, destroyed cities. And yet Ukraine exists, resists, reforms, holds elections, collects taxes. Russian television sees this not as resilience, but as a threat, a living example of how democracy can withstand war. Well, you see where to find the funds? Basically, Brussels is looking for them now. Hexit arrived, quite in the style of the Union of Sword and Plowshare. Make your contributions, make your deposits. Yes, that is, he speaks directly. And he lays out the plan right to the Europeans' faces, and they nod obediently, yes. Well, look how great it all is. Europe buys weapons from America and transfers them to NATO. The question is, America, not NATO. So, you buy weapons from us, and then NATO helps Ukraine. It's a win-win for America, of course a total profit for them in this sense. But when they start calculating which Europeans are going to provide the funds, that's where the problem lies. Sikorsky is well aware of this problem. They've been hammering the EU's main donors, France, Spain and the UK, by the way, about the dramatic drop in spending, the wealthy countries allocating sufficient funds. And the first to splurge are the Baltic states, of course, saying they're ready, and the sums are enormous. Lithuania says we're allocating 30 million euros to Ukraine. Estonia says we're allocating 12 million euros. I specifically looked it up. Well, fine, allocating 30 million is a sum, but if, say, in 2024, Lithuania received over 3 billion million euros in EU funds, and Estonia over €1 billion. That means they're consuming the money themselves, and then they're allocating a fraction of it and saying, well, you're the French and the British, you feed us. That goes without saying, you're obligated to, but you should also give to Ukraine. 3. Europe as a wallet and a fool. The next section is the usual accounting. Europe, they say in the studio, buys weapons from America, gives Ukraine loans, pays for someone else's war. The meaning is simple. If you help, you are used. If you refuse, you are pragmatists. This narrative is not aimed directly at Europe. It is designed to appeal to the inner ear, which is supposed to believe the West is not an alliance, but a club of cynics willing to sell each other out. In this way, the Kremlin is not trying to win externally, but to destroy the moral unity of Europe. Propaganda knows EU unity rests not on fear, but on value, on the idea that the security of one country is impossible without the security of another. Therefore, this idea must be devalued on air, portrayed as absurd, disadvantageous, and American. 4. Poland as a symbol of hatred. Poland occupies a special place in the monologue. An old, almost ritualistic target. Poles are called sponsors of murderers, people without memory, and a systemic enemy. It is Poland, according to Solovyov, that pays for Banderovites to kill Russians. But this isn't about Poland. It's about Europe as a collective guilt. When Warsaw is portrayed as fanatical and Paris or Berlin as indifferent observers, the illusion is created that Europe is internally contradictory and incapable of a common solution. It's an old Soviet trick, only with a new twist, to suggest that the West is not united and therefore weak. This was the Empire of Lies program. See you soon.